The sound of the engine is my favorite symphony. From up here, I can see my farm stretching out like a green carpet until it meets the mountains on the horizon. The landing strip that my grandfather built more than 50 years ago is still the heart of this property. From here, I've helped put out dozens of forest fires and taught hundreds of people how to fly. This land tells our story. Subscribe to the channel and leave your like to have access to more stories like this. It was on a sunny Tuesday that I noticed something was off at the southern end of the runway. Big yellow machines were completely blocking the area. I had a hard time landing and ran over there, feeling my heart race. A metal sign on one of the bulldozers read, "Area off limits due to code violation, contact Rebecca Bennett, president of the Willow Oaks Association." Willow Oaks? That luxury neighborhood they built about 2 kilometers away last year? My farm has never been part of that homeowners association. I immediately called the number on the sign. A polite yet firm voice answered. "Sir, we've tried to reach you several times about bringing your property up to our standards. That runway poses a risk to our community and lowers the value of our homes. The association meeting voted unanimously to block it." "My property isn't part of your association," I replied, trying to stay calm. "This runway is registered, certified, and even used to fight regional fires. You don't have the legal authority to block it." "Rules have changed," the voice replied coldly. "I expect to see you at the next meeting to discuss your official membership in our association." The next day, I removed the blocks with the help of my son Lucas and an old tractor. 2 hours later, I got a legal notice threatening a lawsuit for damages to the association's property. It was absurd, but it wouldn't be the last intimidation attempt. The following week, I started noticing unfamiliar cars parked along the rural road leading to my property. People were taking pictures of the farm, the runway, and even Lucas when he came home from school. One man even walked onto my property to stick up a notice on the fence that said, "Environmental violation, illegal land use, fine pending." That was when I decided to get legal help. The lawyer confirmed what I already knew: my property wasn't under that association's jurisdiction. I sent a formal letter demanding that they stop the harassment immediately. The response came as a proposal: sell half of my land for a community project at a price well below market value. The letter mentioned concerns regarding fire safety and hinted that I might face regulatory complications if I didn't cooperate. I recognized the signature, Rebecca Bennett. One October afternoon, after a training flight, I got back and couldn't find Lucas at home. His room was a mess, his bike tossed into the yard. I called all his friends, his school, the neighbors. Nothing. Desperation set in as the hours passed. At 9 in the evening, my phone buzzed with a video, Lucas tied up in a chair, with a current newspaper next to him to prove it was recent. "We just want to talk about the terms for joining the association," the message said. "Come alone to the Willow Oaks Community Center tomorrow at 10 a.m. I recognized elements in the background, a specific decor I'd seen in Willow Oaks promotional materials. There was no doubt who was behind it. This was never just about building rules or aesthetics. It was about power and control, and Rebecca Bennett had crossed an unforgivable line. I couldn't call the police right away, Lucas might be in danger. I needed help from someone I trusted completely. So I called Samuel, my friend from my firefighting days, the only person who had both discretion and investigative skills. "We need to be smart," Samuel said when he arrived. "Let's pretend you're going to the meeting tomorrow, and meanwhile, we'll figure out where they're keeping the kid." Samuel and I spent the whole night planning. While I pretended to agree to go to the meeting, he discreetly started watching what was going on at Willow Oaks. At 7 in the morning, I got a call from him. "I have some news," he said quietly. "I noticed some suspicious activity at the warehouse behind the association club. A guy in his early 30s goes in and out regularly, always carrying enough food for 2. Were you able to see Lucas?" I asked, gripping the phone tighter. "Not directly, but I heard voices. One sounded like a teenager. And, most importantly, Rebecca showed up there around 6 in the morning and stayed for about 20 minutes. My blood boiled. I took a deep breath, trying to stay as clear-headed as I was during years of fighting fires. I'll go to the meeting as requested, but I need you to keep an eye on that warehouse. If you see any sign of danger to Lucas, let me know right away. Samuel hesitated. There's one more thing. I recognized the guy watching the warehouse. His name is Jeffrey Reeve. We worked with him briefly at the fire department before he was fired for misconduct. Now he claims to be a private investigator, but he doesn't even have an official license. Another piece of the puzzle fell into place. Jeffrey was known for taking on shady jobs, and Rebecca likely hired him to do her dirty work. I arrived at the Willow Oaks Community Center right at 10 a.m. The place oozed wealth, marble floors, huge windows looking out onto pristine gardens, and furniture that probably cost more than my tractor. Rebecca was waiting for me in an empty meeting room, seated at the head of a long table like a queen on her throne. Good thing you decided to be reasonable, she said while motioning me to a chair. I've prepared the documents for your membership in the association. It also includes selling part of your land and permanently shutting down that old runway. I kept my face neutral as I sat down. Where's my son? She smiled. He's safe. Once you sign these papers, he'll come home later today. I want to talk to him first, I insisted. She paused, then picked up a phone. After a quick conversation, she handed it over to me. Dad? Lucas's voice sounded tense but steady. Are you okay, son? I'm fine. They didn't hurt me, but... He lowered his voice. I'm in a warehouse, and I can see part of the golf course through a gap in the window. And there's a guy named Jeff with me. Rebecca snatched the phone away from me. Happy now? Now sign the papers. I pretended to read through the documents while secretly sending a message to Samuel with our location. I needed to buy some time. You do realize this is kidnapping, right? A federal crime, I said calmly. For a moment, her smile wavered. I'd rather call it a quick negotiation. Your property is standing in the way of our community's natural development. That runway attracts the wrong type of people and devalues our properties. Why all the obsession with my land? There are hundreds of hectares around here. She straightened up. Your land is strategic. The water access, the natural elevation, studies show it's the ideal spot for Willow Oaks expansion. I kept asking about technical details and questioned specific clauses. Every minute counted as Samuel worked on finding Lucas. My phone buzzed discreetly, the confirmation I'd been waiting for. I need some time to go through all of this, I said, standing up. I'll be right back after a quick break. You have 5 minutes, Rebecca said coolly. In the bathroom, I checked Samuel's message, location confirmed. I'm in position. Now or never. I quickly replied, go. I'm leaving here. When I got back to the meeting room, I looked Rebecca in the eye with a calm I didn't really feel. I can't sign these papers today. Her expression changed. I think you don't understand the situation. I understand perfectly. Kidnapping, extortion, conspiracy. I recorded everything, including your admission that you're holding my son against his will. Her face paled, but she soon regained her composure. No one's going to believe you over me. I'm respected in this community, I help with political campaigns, and I organize charity events. Right then, my phone rang. It was Samuel. I've got the kid. We're on our way, but there's a problem. The warehouse was empty when I got there. We followed some recent tracks and found Lucas being moved to an abandoned model house in the new construction area. Jeffrey ran when he saw me. Relief hit me like a wave. Lucas was safe. I looked at Rebecca, now confused by my sudden confidence. It's over, Rebecca. My son is safe, and you're going to pay for your crimes. She suddenly stood up, knocking a chair over. You don't have any proof. It's your word against mine. Actually, I have more than words. I pulled out a small recorder that I'd been keeping on the whole time. And this is just the beginning. Rebecca tried to grab the recorder but backed off. Her mask of civility completely crumbled. "You don't know who you're messing with. I have connections, I have influence. I've ruined people far more important than you." I stayed calm. "And now you have a federal kidnapping case on your hands." I quickly left the community center while Rebecca shouted threats. In the parking lot, Samuel and Lucas were waiting for me. I hugged my son tightly, feeling him tremble a little. "Are you okay?" I asked, checking him for injuries. "I'm fine," Lucas replied, sounding stronger than I expected. "They didn't hurt me, they only kept me locked up." Jeffrey spent most of his time on the phone with someone, complaining about change of plans and extra payment for risk. Samuel interjected, "We need to head to the police now, but first, look at this." He opened his laptop on the car hood, showing photos of where Lucas was held. I documented everything, the location, the conditions, personal items Jeffrey left behind in the rush, including documents with Rebecca's signature. On the drive to the station, Lucas explained how, while coming home from school, Jeffrey approached him claiming to be a friend of your dad with an urgent message. By the time Lucas realized it was a trap, he was already being taken to the warehouse. He kept talking on the phone with someone he called a Mrs. Bennett. "I even heard them planning to move me to another location because you weren't cooperating as they expected." At the station, our story was met with skepticism at first. Rebecca Bennett was influential in the county, and some officers hesitated to believe the accusations. Everything changed when we presented the recordings, the photos, and Lucas's detailed account. While we were giving our statements, I received a message from Olivia Trenton, a journalist from the local paper. "I heard about the Willow Oaks incident. I've been investigating irregularities in the association for months. Can we talk?" We arranged to meet the next day. Olivia arrived with a folder full of documents, unresolved complaints, ignored environmental violations, manipulated financial records, all linked to Rebecca's management. "Your story is the final piece we needed," Olivia explained. "It shows just how far she's willing to go." I started out investigating power abuses in the association, but this goes much deeper. With the police's permission, we gave an interview detailing everything, the illegal blocking of the runway, the threats, Lucas's kidnapping, and all the evidence we had gathered. The report was published the next morning and went viral immediately. The impact was immediate. Other Willow Oaks residents and communities run by Rebecca began coming forward with their own stories of intimidation and coercion. A federal investigation was launched to look into possible violations of federal housing laws and financial crimes. 3 days later, the police arrested Rebecca as she tried to catch an international flight. Jeffrey Reeve was caught at a roadside motel about 200 kilometers away, carrying money and compromising documents. The charges included kidnapping, extortion, conspiracy, and obstruction of justice. The case gained national attention, becoming a symbol of the power abuses in unsupervised homeowners associations. Reporters from all over the country showed up at my farm, looking for interviews and shots of the famous runway that had triggered everything. During the investigation, I discovered something surprising. While checking property records to defend my rights, I found old documents showing that my grandfather had kept the mineral and water access rights on land that eventually became part of Willow Oaks. Apparently, the condo developers never did a thorough title search before starting construction. Rebecca knew this. That's why she was so desperate to take control of my property and our family documents. With those rights, I technically had legal power over crucial aspects of Willow Oaks infrastructure, including its water supply. She wasn't just a power-hungry control freak, my lawyer explained. She was trying to cover up a catastrophic planning mistake that could cost millions and potentially devalue the whole community. The next few months were a rollercoaster both legally and emotionally. While Rebecca awaited her trial, I turned down lucrative offers for exclusive interviews and book deals. My priority was to protect Lucas and get our life back to normal. The case against Rebecca and Jeffrey grew stronger every day. A police search of her house uncovered a meticulously organized file about my property, even including aerial photos taken illegally and notes on Lucas's routine. The evidence of premeditation was undeniable. During a preliminary hearing, I ran into Patricia Bennett, Rebecca's older sister, in the courthouse hallway. "I'm really sorry for what my sister did to your family," she said, genuinely looking ashamed. Rebecca always had issues with boundaries and authority. Ever since she was a kid, she felt the need to control everything around her. I tried to step in when I saw she was going too far with Willow Oaks, but she completely pushed me away. "Did you know about the kidnapping?" I asked directly. Patricia went pale. "Never. I never imagined she'd go that far. But I did see signs of obsession when she started talking about your property as if it were personal. She saw your independence as a direct challenge to her authority." This information helped build a more complete psychological profile of Rebecca for the trial, but my biggest concern now was another: what to do with the mineral and water rights that I discovered I had over Willow Oaks. My lawyer suggested using them as bargaining chips to guarantee total protection against any future interference from the association. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that I had an opportunity to do something constructive instead of just defensive. "I want to use these rights to promote real changes in how the association operates," I explained to the temporary committee that took over managing Willow Oaks after Rebecca's arrest. "Not to get revenge or take control, but to establish a healthy balance between development and respect for private property." The initial reaction was defensive. Some residents, still loyal to Rebecca, argued that I was just replacing one tyrant with another. Daniel Vance, one of the longest-serving committee members, was especially vocal against my proposal. "What's to stop you from using these rights to extort us in the future?" he challenged during an especially tense meeting. "Why should we trust someone who doesn't even live in our community?" "Because, unlike Rebecca, I'm not interested in controlling your lives," I replied calmly. "I'm not here to dictate the color of your houses or the size of your fences. I just want to protect my right to use my property the way I always have, including the runway that keeps this region safe." I showed records from the past 15 years that documented dozens of firefighting operations coordinated from my runway, including 3 that saved areas that now belong to Willow Oaks. Slowly, the tension eased as other residents, especially the newer ones, recognized the value of having a resource like that nearby. A more balanced perspective began to emerge. Working with my lawyer and consultants specializing in association governance, we developed a new set of rules for Willow Oaks. The document included specific clauses that limited the association's power over neighboring properties, required complete financial transparency, and set up an independent oversight board made up of representatives from both the community and adjacent property owners. In return, I agreed to formalize easements for recreational trails crossing small parts of my land and to collaborate on environmental conservation projects that would benefit both sides. Just when the negotiation was nearly done, Rebecca made one last desperate attempt from her detention center. Through her new lawyer, she submitted documents that appeared to be signed by my grandfather decades ago, supposedly ceding the mineral rights in question to a company that, she claimed, now belonged to her. When experts looked over the documents, the fraud was obvious. The signatures were fake, and the dates didn't match the county's records. This final act of desperation only strengthened the criminal case against her and solidified my position in the negotiations with Willow Oaks. At trial, Rebecca was found guilty on all charges. The judge, clearly disturbed by the calculated nature of her crimes, sentenced her to 12 years in prison. Jeffrey Reeve received a lighter sentence in exchange for his detailed testimony about Rebecca's operations. During the sentencing, the judge pointed out how the case exposed vulnerabilities in the way homeowners associations are regulated. "This court is deeply concerned about the lack of oversight over these quasi-governmental entities," he said. "While most associations operate within the law, this case shows how, without proper controls, they can turn into instruments of local tyranny." A week after the trial, I got an unexpected call from the governor's office. The fallout from the case had reached the state capitol, and a special commission was being formed to review legislation on homeowners associations. They wanted me to take part, offering my perspective as both a victim and someone who negotiated a constructive solution. "Your experience could help shape laws that protect thousands of property owners across the state," the governor's assistant explained. "We need voices like yours to balance this debate." I accepted, recognizing the chance to turn our traumatic experience into something positive for others. Lucas encouraged me wholeheartedly. "You've got to do it, Dad." What happened to us shouldn't happen to any other family. During that period, Daniel Vance tried to position himself as Rebecca's successor at Willow Oaks, promising to maintain the community's high standards. His talk sounded dangerously familiar, talking about undesirable elements and aesthetic conformity. But the residents were much more aware now. In an extraordinary election, they rejected Vance and elected a diverse council committed to transparency and respect for individual rights. It was a clear rejection of the authoritarian style that Rebecca had represented. The new leadership at Willow Oaks worked with me to implement the negotiated agreement. The final document, signed during a public ceremony, was praised as a model for resolving conflicts between homeowners associations and traditional rural communities. In recognition of the historical and practical importance of my runway, the association not only dropped all objections but also included information about it in their promotional materials, highlighting its role in regional fire safety. Meanwhile, back at the state capitol, my work on the legislative committee was starting to pay off. Together with other property owners, specialized lawyers, and even heads of enlightened associations, I helped draft a comprehensive bill that established clear limits on association authority and created means for property owners to get redress. One of the most important parts of the bill, dubbed in the media as the Lucas Clause, required total transparency about the legal limits of associations, with heavy fines for attempts to overstep those limits. This isn't an anti-association bill, I explained during a public hearing attended by hundreds. It's for transparency and balance. Homeowners associations can play a valuable role when they work within proper limits and with the informed consent of their members. The proposal faced fierce opposition from real estate developers and a federation of homeowners associations, who argued that the new rules would make it difficult to maintain high-quality communities. The debate heated up when Olivia Trenton published a series of investigative reports revealing similar abuse patterns across several associations in the state. Her investigation, partly inspired by our case, showed that Rebecca wasn't an isolated case but an extreme example of a much wider problem. What happened to your family opened the door for us to examine an entire system that operates behind the scenes, Olivia told me during an interview. We're seeing dozens of less dramatic, yet equally troubling cases of people losing their homes or being harassed over trivial infractions. The reports changed the public debate. Personal stories of elderly homeowners being evicted for not being able to pay exorbitant fines for minor violations, or families harassed just for growing vegetables in their backyards, resonated widely and swayed many undecided lawmakers. After months of negotiations, testimony, and revisions, the bill finally passed with strong bipartisan support. The governor, at a ceremony where Lucas and I were honored guests, signed the law and called it a milestone in protecting property rights and promoting good local governance. On our drive home after the ceremony, Lucas, now more confident and mature after everything we had been through, made a suggestion that would once again change our lives. Dad, I've been thinking, our farm and the runway could be used for more than just helping our family and fighting fires, he said, sounding a bit nervous but determined. What if we started a program for city kids to learn about aviation and farming? A lot of them have never seen a real farm or an airplane up close. Subscribe to the channel and leave your like to have access to more stories like this. We could call it Earth and Sky Camp, Lucas continued, growing more excited. We teach them about sustainable farming, let them help with the animals, and on weekends, you could take them for a flight and show them basic navigation and safety.